This is the third in our series of 6 videos from the Garden City Library located in Garden City, Idaho, talking about the 6 skills of early literacy. The 2 skills we've already covered are vocabulary and print motivation, and today we'll be talking about print awareness, or just seeing and knowing that words around you convey meaning. The 3 skills we've yet to cover are narrative skills, letter knowledge, and phonological, which you'll remember by this point means sound awareness. So like I said, today we'll be talking about print awareness. One easy thing you can do is just look for print in the world around you. It is everywhere. Find it on menus, in newspapers, obviously in books, but be creative. Look for other places like signs, and talk with your child about how print in different contexts can convey different things. Print in books can be for pleasure or to learn things, but print on signs usually tells us to do something like stop or yield, or that there's danger ahead. Print on a menu can show us that those are our choices for what we get to order. So use the different contexts and don't be afraid to elaborate on what that different print means. I'd also like to give you some practical examples today about using books and how you can help your child be more aware of print in the context of a book. So today I've chosen a book which many of us grew up reading. It is a treasury of Dick and Jane books. It's called The Storybook Treasury of Dick and Jane and Friends. So I've chosen this book for a couple reasons, but I might as well tell you them now because these are more suggestions that I have for today. One way that is helpful to build print awareness is simply by using text that is repetitive so that your child can see that there's a difference between the words and what you're saying, but they can see the similarities if the word is repeated often. Oh, she said that lots of times and it looks the same every time she says it on the page. That's a good reinforcer for your child of what we're trying to get across today. But before we dive into the book, let's talk about the outside of the book, because there's lots of treasures of print awareness here that we may not even be aware of. Something that we know as adults is that there's a specific way to read a book, just like there's a specific way to look at a map. But if we didn't know that a map contains states and roads and highways and rivers and other landmarks like that, we might not be very well oriented with a map. We need to know that north is north, south is south, west and east are where they are. And just in that same way, our kids need to know how a book works. So we could hand them the book and say, look, this is our title, or this is not our title page. This is our cover. See how the picture is right side up? And how we have a big title on the front. It's called The Storybook Treasury of Dick and Jane and Friends. You'll notice on this video, as well as the last, that our print is backwards. I hope again you can bear with me and just take what I'm saying and flip it around in your mind. You can also show your child that our book has a spine. There's one end of the book with a spine and one end of the book without a spine. That's the side that we open. You can show them the back of your book. Talk about the differences between the front of the book and the back of the book. What do you see that's different? Some suggestions for you, just to get you started, are the back has a barcode, and the back usually doesn't carry our title. But see what other things you can find with your child. So after you guys have talked about how a book looks, you've gotten oriented to the book, you could hand your child the book and say, okay, now you do it. You could either hand it to them correctly, or you might hand it to them incorrectly, so that it's upside down to them. And you can say, all right, open the book to the first word so that we can start reading. That is, of course, assuming that they know where the first word is, which we're going to talk about in a minute. So they might open it, and say they open it upside down, and they hand it to you like this, and say, this is the first word, Mom, or this is the first word, Dad, or Grandma. You could say, oops, try again, look. Our words are upside down, and our picture is upside down. We can't read a book like that. So you could help them. You could either say flip it over, or you could do it yourself and say, This is our first word. It says, we look and see. And then you guys can get started reading. There's our title page. And this word says Dick. That's our boy. I'm going to read a little bit of it so you can see what I mean by the repetition to help you choose your own books. It says, look, look. Oh, oh, oh. Look, look. Oh, look. Jane. See, see. See, Jane. Oh, Jane. Look, look, look. One powerful thing about these books is, like I said, they have a lot of repetition. These came right to my mind when I started thinking of repetitive books because they're among the most repetitive that I know of. And like I said, it helps your child differentiate between words in the text, and seeing words over and over in lots of different sentences is always helpful to build print awareness. Let's see. Those are the things that I would like to recommend for the books today. One more thing before I move on to the next thing, because I think it's important, is you probably saw me do it, but I'd like to highlight it for you verbally, is follow along with your finger on the text. That helps your child pair the words that are coming out of her mouth is what the book is telling her to read. She's not making up a story on her own. This is a written set of instructions, as it were, for how the story goes. So you can follow it. You can say, see, Jane. And then once your child is of the appropriate age, or once they feel comfortable, you can gauge that as a parent to know where your child is as far as, do they see a word and know that a word is a word? You can ask them to follow along and you can read it. You can say, okay, you get to point to the word and I'll read it. So they don't even have to be able to read at this point. They just need to know that a word is a unit. And if they don't understand that, take a step back and show them. Each word is one unit. See. When I point to this, it tells me say see. When I point to this, it tells me say Jane. So they can follow along. And if they're speeding through, then you'll know, well, they might not understand that one word is one unit. So you could do hand over hand with them. You could take their hand and your hand and point to it together. And while you're reading it out loud, see, Jane. Those are some tips that you could use to help your child do that, and that further builds print awareness. One last tip that I'd like to offer today is something that's pretty simple. You could use a page like this. We find them on the internet. You could type in children's writing lines or something like that, and you could find a drawing box like this with a little bit of searching on the internet. It should be pretty easy to find. And your child can draw whatever they want. You might even want to print one out for yourself too, so that you guys can do it as an activity together. But regardless of how you do it, or you could just use a plain sheet of paper. Any paper is fine. It doesn't have to be special like this. They can draw a picture. So you can see my little picture of the house in the sun with the red door. And once they're finished with their picture, you can say, what would you like to say about your picture? And they can tell you. If they don't have anything off the top of their head, you could prompt them. Do you want to say, I have a big brown house? Or 3 bears live in my house? Or the sun is shining in this hot summer day and I am in my house? Or something like that. I was just making up those sentences. And then as they dictate it, you can write it down and then read it back to them. So that's a really good way that you and your child can work on print awareness together. They can recognize, oh, I say this word and she writes it, and then when she reads it back to me, it's exactly what I said before. What we're wanting to do in all of these activities of print awareness is just showing kids, yes, the written word conveys meaning. So that is the end of our video today on print awareness. I hope that these tips have been helpful, and we will see you next time for narrative skills.